Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Soak. Again, John, Dave, and myself are going to look back over Leinster's crap performance in London. Look forward to our game against Quins in the Aviva next week, and also all the other Heineken Cup action. So, boys, that was just another shite performance.
It's it was. No denying it, is there? You could be probably locked up for trying to deny that as a shite performance. We didn't look like scoring a try. We didn't look like we had any coherence or plan or focus.
I've actually worked out what the plan is. Carry on, yeah. No, I have actually worked out the plan.
We just look to be playing accountant rugby.
What's the big downer on accountants? For the last 3 weeks you mentioned accountants in a negative.
My wife's an accountant. They're lovely people. She's not a typical accountant though, and neither are you, Jay.
Thank you very much.
And fairness, if it wasn't for masturbation, accountants would never get laid. Go on.
Anyway, what I mean is conservative rugby rather than accountants rugby. John Major rugby, will we call it that?
The only man to run away from a circus and join an accountancy practice.
Anyway, yeah, it's hard to see a plan. It's hard to see anything going on.
But are we just I was in the in the bar after the match, and I met this Quins guy, and we were just saying we're two average teams, and neither of us are really. Let's be honest about it. Are we really going to be at the point
Troubling anyone?
Troubling the scores.
What I was about to say was, if you look at Munster's pool, the whipping boys of Munster's pool, Sale Sharks, who in fairness didn't put up a very good show against Saracens, and drove Munster hard enough as well in the early game. They are above both the English teams in our pool in the Aviva Premiership. That kind of says it all. And we're struggling we struggled hard enough against Wasps, and we couldn't put Quins away.
But this team seems to be,
and they're pretty average.
But this team, Leinster's team, seems to be in terminal decline. If you think back over the last 12 months of the big games that the team has been involved in, we were beaten at the start of the season against Glasgow away. We were beaten both home and away by Munster in the last 12 months. We've been beaten in the Aviva Stadium last Christmas by Saints. Toulon, they're an exceptional team. I'll nearly write that one off. We've beaten by Connacht away, and now we've been beaten by Quins away. The teams that are beating us aren't world beaters, with the exception of Toulon. And everyone else is pretty bog standard, and they're beating us in games, whereas a few seasons ago we would have.
You can pick stuff out. You can say the same. You could go the opposite way and say in that period of time we beat Saints, we beat Glasgow a couple of times, we beat Ulster to win a final. I mean, you could, but to put that. I mean, if you pick out the odd, if you pick out
I picked out 6 games there, though, Dave.
Yeah, but you're picking out 6 losses. Pick out 6 wins, semi-finals, finals.
Yeah.
We got
draw against Treviso. We were hammered by Saints at the weekend.
Yeah, but we qualified out of it. We lost to Treviso under Joe Schmidt, and that's the other side. You see, that's why the whole. Anyway, but the point of it is that we're not playing well. But the reason we're not playing well is because the game plan we picked has 2 stages. The first stage is not to play any rugby whatsoever. In the first,
they might find out what you're at.
Yeah, in the first 60 meters of the pitch, from our try line up to 20 odd, 30 odd meters out, we are not going to play any rugby, right? That's part of the game plan. Second part of it, when we do decide to use the ball in hand, if you look at it, the game has been played extraordinarily flat, right? Gopperth is standing almost on the gain line every time he receives the ball. He's passing it to a guy who's almost on the gain line when he receives the ball. It's an extremely flat game. It allows the player has one option, and that's to use his own physicality, or maybe it's something a bit clever in his footwork, and rely on the opposition defender to make a mistake.
It's not working, Dave.
There's nobody running lines
and what
from
I'm going to say is the reason it's not working
at.
is we've been asking, why is there so many intercept passes this year? And the reason why there's so many intercept passes this year is because we're so close to the gain line. It's easy to intercept because we're passing the ball. We're literally not even arm's reach away from the opposition player. That's why we've had 3 or 4 intercepts this year.
Yeah, well, everybody.
It's just it's a tactic that depends too much on an opposition not doing the right thing, and us being exceptionally better than them, as opposed to creating mismatches and creating situations. We're not creating it. what Leinster traditionally have always done.
When was the last time Leinster didn't score 2 tries didn't score a try in 2 games? Like, I'd say you have to go back a number of seasons for that to have happened.
Yeah, probably. I'd say you'd probably have to go back to 2009.
Don't know off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head, I can't think.
I don't
of
know, but I mean, it
But
doesn't
like,
happen very often.
when
The
you're
last time I can think
when you're
of
getting
Leinster
hammered-
scoring a try in 2 consecutive games in the one competition is certainly 2009. That's the last time I can remember it happening. It was the last game of the group stage against Edinburgh, and then the quarter final against Quins. That's the last time I can remember. I can't remember a time.
But
since.
there's games in between that.
Yeah, but I can't remember any time since. That's the last time I can remember them 2 in consecutive games in the competition, not necessarily 2 consecutive games. But the problem is, if we're doing this thing, we're not creating an opportunity for the player who's receiving the ball to have an advantage over his opposition number. What we're relying on is the player receiving the ball creating his own advantage, and I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, and we also saw stuff like fellas running directly across the pitch from side to side. I think
like-
Rob Kearney looked like he was trying to win the game on his own, and take it by the scruff of the neck. And unfortunately, he wasn't on the same wavelength as Fanning on at least 3 occasions where, he maybe gave him a few unforgiving passes.
But then sometimes it's kind of nearly a lack of the basic knowledge of the rules. That if there's a knock on, you can't pick the ball up when it's in front of you.
Yeah, actually, I saw the one back with Madigan and Jordy Murphy, and if you look at it, he actually wasn't in front. The ball didn't travel forward from Madigan's hands, and when Murphy touched it, it was actually behind where Madigan was. Now he did come in. I don't know what the exact rules are. He did come in from the other side, so unless that's what the rule is, that he's coming from an offside position.
You have to come from behind the
handle
ball,
it. So
supposedly.
yeah, exactly.
But then again, I mean, that if we were to say that I mean, that was a small issue in terms of the greater thing. I mean, we have a situation where
Big issue was the
players-
scrum, though, where
players who have-
your man was
well-
driving up in the.
Well, I'll come to that. Players who have huge experience, huge international experience, huge experience above international level, and at international level for a number of countries are unable to execute a 2-yard pass. Now, when we were training to play tag, Jason, and somebody failed to make that pass, they'd be, words would be had. Words would be had. I mean, there's a huge amount of blame to go. Like I said, success has many fathers, and so does failure. There's a huge amount of blame to go wrong. The coach has got the wrong game plan, right? The wrong game plan, but the players are fucking it up big time as well.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because
But-
when it comes
but-
down to it, it's not
but-
Matt O'Connor throwing the intercepts.
No, it's not.
true. But it's
they-
him who's supposed to be working on their heads and giving them
Oh, yeah,
confidence
yeah.
in his game
It's a
plan
holistic thing.
as well.
It's the old Gestalt again.
But when you see him kind of losing the rag at a press conference, you kind of know
Just
that
shows he's under pressure.
he's
yeah.
under enormous pressure. But perhaps he's, he can't be seen to be wavering like that. To have a go at the press, to have a go at the, at the fans, rather than he has to take some responsibility, and he's got. Would you have seen Joe Schmidt? Would you see Michael Checker
Yeah.
throw a wobbler like that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have seen Michael
Yeah.
Checker. No.
Michael Checker barred journalists from press conferences.
No, Michael-
Michael
Michael Checker wouldn't
Checker
have-
pulled Neil Francis's press accreditation for the RDS. So he did. It's not even open for discussion.
Over the
He did it.
Ladyboys article.
Over the Ladyboys article. I mean, it's not even open for discussion.
But-
Checker was way worse.
Well, I don't think so because
Schmidt wasn't, you see. That's
But-
the thing.
well-
No, Schmidt was different, but Checker certainly did.
no, because you see, I think if you look back on it, like there was no one really having a go. The fans were, the press weren't having a go. There was no one coming out and having a monumental opinion piece on how crap Leinster
Michael
are.
Checker refused to speak to
But-
Satanta
but-
after the Ulster game
but-
in the because they
But-
he refused to speak to Satanta because they employed Neil Francis. Do you not remember that?
But hold on, but that's what Checker did. He picked that one individual and and it was Francis who was critical of the team. Coming out and basically insulting the team, calling them ladyboys. No one really insulted.
Which Munster fans had been doing for years.
They had, but no one had insulted this team under O'Connor, and he just made a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's the worst thing that he's done. He's going down the road of what Gatlin did 10 years ago. He's having a go at the IRFU, and he continues doing that. he won't be
Oh,
in the
he
job
won't-
much
no,
longer.
no. He's made a couple of mistakes. There's a couple of things. First of all, I mean, when journalists start quoting fans, you should just ignore the journalists, right? Because if you talk to any journalist worth his salt when he's quoting an anonymous guy off the internet,
Or at least disguise it.
yeah. But O'Connor should have just shined it on. I mean, he shouldn't have got upset. But the thing is, I mean, the whole thing is everybody's blaming, like you're saying, like no other Leinster coach would do that. But a Leinster coach did do that and did
Well,
worse.
no, but
So
he-
that's,
but
and
I
that's
wouldn't
the
say
point
he
I'm
did it.
making,
No,
you see.
Dave, you see-
They're not being held to the same standard. Matt O'Connor is
But
not.
why are you defending O'Connor so
I'm
much?
not. I'm,
But you
I'm,
are.
I
just-
want him to be held to the same standard as previous Leinster coaches were being held to. That's all, right? So if you're going to criticise Matt O'Connor for going off at a journalist, you have to criticise not Joe Schmidt, Michael Cheika. And you actually said that Michael Cheika didn't do it. Michael Cheika did
no.
it.
He
Michael
was a
Cheika
grumpy bastard,
refused
in
to speak
fairness.
to an entire television station. Refused to carry out his contractual obligations to do post-match interviews because of one journalist. So to say, all I want is all the coaches, good and bad, to be held to the same standard. And they're not been. And that's my big problem. My big problem with the criticism of Matt O'Connor, I don't think Matt O'Connor should have his contract renewed unless we win the Heineken Cup this year, or at least get to the final.
Well, in defence of Cheika, what Cheika did was he turned around a team that was perennial losers. He turned around a team. He got them to the semi-final of the Heineken Cup. He got them beating Toulouse away in Toulouse. A couple of seasons later, we won the Magners.
That was the end of his second season, that wasn't it?
Well, it was his first season, wasn't it? That he
First season was 2005, 2006.
It was Toulouse, sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
But anyway,
Second.
so within a couple of seasons, he got to a semi-final of the European Cup.
Third season he won the Magners.
Won the Magners League. The following year, he won the
Heineken
Heineken
Cup.
Cup. And the following year again, his final year, he got to the final of the Pro 12 and he got to the semi-final. While the press mightn't have liked his methods or might have been pissed off that he wouldn't talk to a particular journalist, the fact is that if it's a results-orientated business, he had the results to back up.
But if it's a
O'Connor-
result, no,
but
if it's a
O'Connor-
results oriented
O'Connor
business,
won
then
the league
O'Connor
last
has the
year, so-
results.
What does he have?
He's won we're the current league champions. We got to the quarter final of the Heineken Cup,
Quarter-final.
where we were beaten by the most expensively assembled squad in the history of the sport,
We-
who went on to win the tournament,
We blew-
improving
we were-
how we did the previous season.
We were-
How did we do the previous
We
season?
were beaten in the quarter-final. We were beaten in the Aviva Stadium by Northampton Saints, which denied us a
How
home
did we do the
quarter-final.
previous season?
Well, we won the European Challenge Cup and we won the Pro 12. Dave.
How do we do in Europe? How do we do in the Heineken Cup quarterfinals the previous season?
We weren't in it. You know.
Well,
that.
I know that, but that's what I'm saying. Where's the common standard?
Okay, well, let's not get too bogged
Well,
down.
I think
But
you're.
I don't think O'Connor should be around, but I'm saying that he should be held to the same standard, and the previous coaches should be. The reason
You
we're
can't
in
win the competition every year, but Dave, it's the way that you play. Because I guarantee you, do you know what's going to happen? This year we've got 11,000 season ticket holders.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be about 8,000 next season. You just see how many people turn up to the Aviva on Saturday.
If we win, the place will be jammed.
yeah, but if we win,
Yeah, but
if
see,
we win,
but
what
that's
do you
the
mean
point
if we
I'm
win?
making.
Do you think this team is going to win the European Cup?
But did you think the team was going to win the European Cup in December 2008? I was trying to find out what the situation is. Everyone been held to the same standard? And the answer is they're not.
Well, I think you're wrong there, to be quite honest with you, because would you go, if you didn't have a season ticket this year, would you encourage your friends to go and watch Leinster
No,
play
I
this
wouldn't.
year?
No, but that's not the argument I'm
That
having.
is the argument. Well, I'm the
No.
argument I'm asking. It's a question I'm
Well,
asking.
no, I wouldn't. No, I don't think that A, Leinster are playing particularly well. B, the coach is coaching in the correct manner. C, our forwards coach and our skills coach aren't doing a good job, and our continuity has been wrong. Right now, those are 5 things. But were those 5 points been held up against previous coaches? No, they weren't, and that's my problem. Right? When Matt O'Connor came in and got to the quarterfinal of the Heineken Cup and won the Pro 12, he was being criticised. He was being criticised 26 minutes into this season. The criticism started.
26 minutes.
26 minutes into this season. 26 minutes into
By
the
who?
first
By
game
a
of
few-
this season.
by a few loonies on an
Sure, the
internet
few
site.
loonies on the internet site are the ones the journalists brought up before Matt O'Connor the other week. So, I mean, they're the ones who are... But that's the point I'm making. The same standards aren't being held. Now, after the Glasgow game, were there criticisms to be made? Absolutely. But not 26 minutes into it. And 26 minutes into a successful
But now
coaching
we're,
reign.
now we're 3 or 4 months into the season,
Yes,
Dave.
again, but
That's true.
the point again that's fair enough, but that's not the point I'm making.
You have to question that Leo Cullen was a great player for Leinster.
Is he a good enough forward coach?
I don't know, but you
No,
know
I
what?
don't think so.
He's learning his apprenticeship in Leinster. At least with O'Gara, he's gone off. He can make his mistakes in France. If he comes back to Munster or wherever he goes, whether it could be even Ireland or Leinster, who knows. But wherever he comes back, he'll have got his experience in France and maybe learned by making his mistakes. Like everyone does, he's a human
100%
being.
agree with that.
We, like, you know, I would imagine that Leinster Rugby is one of the top 5 coaching positions in the world, or certainly in the Northern Hemisphere. And for a guy to just finish up playing one day and a week later to start a new role as the head, as the head forwards coach, like that's an incredible leap without having any experience.
Yeah,
doing
and
it.
it's also a gamble considering that the guys were his teammates and now he's the boss.
I don't think you can ever do that. I don't think you can ever walk into the dressing room one day as a player and another day as a coach. I just don't think it works. And I think that the difference between the situations was highlighted by how the Claremont forwards were drilled by their forwards coach, who used to be our forwards coach. On
We'll
the
get
fixed
on to
side.
him.
Although, in fairness to him, he started off his coaching career in Leinster, but he didn't have any baggage.
Different club.
He didn't know the fellas.
No, I agree with that. I listed the 5 things, and one of those was their forwards coach. I think that is an issue. There's 2 things there's 2 points to be argued here, right?
There's about 50 million points.
Well,
Go on anyway.
there's 2 tracks, if you like. Jason's arguing. I think what Jason's arguing is the situation we're in at the moment with Matt O'Connor and our forwards coach and the general thing of the team. Whereas I'm actually arguing a different point with Jason. Whereas I'm arguing that is Matt O'Connor been held to a different standard? It's probably a different, less relevant point. Is Matt O'Connor been held to a different standard than other coaches have in the past? Right now, your points are all very valid about Matt O'Connor in and of themselves. He is not coaching Leinster well. The team are not playing well. It's not been selected well. The signings are not good. The signings that have been made were not good. For example, Kane Douglas has been, very, very
Underwhelming.
disappointing, underwhelming at best, and that's a Matt O'Connor signing. Brian Teo or Ben Teo, we haven't seen yet. We haven't had a chance to see yet, and jury's out on him. You're always taking a risk with a rugby league guy,
Of course.
and the way that the team has been selected in the absence of those guys is not good. In the way we're playing,
Here's something, Dave, right? Something I've been thinking about is early on in the season, or possibly last season, Matt O'Connor came out and said he wanted to be able to sign more players. In an ideal world, I think he was asked something about the standard of his players, and he was saying, in an ideal world, I'd be able to go out and sign, like Toulon can sign a clatter of Southern Hemisphere stars, whatever. What he hasn't had, because of the situation with a lot of players going to Ireland, and in fairness, Joe Schmidt didn't have it either. But Joe Schmidt is a bit of a one-off. Holding coaches to the same standard as Joe Schmidt is pretty hard. Seeing as there's only one Joe Schmidt. But the point I'm getting at is he hasn't had continuity of selection due to injury and Irish team. So what's he done? He's kind of selected Fanning and Gopperth as names number 1 and 2 on the team sheet nearly. And in a funny way, while we're all complaining about that fact, in a funny way, it's given continuity, maybe a bad continuity, but it's given the guy people that are in the same position every week that he can. And Madigan at 12 is probably part of that now, because that seems to be another default signing. Put Madigan at 12, so there's 3 members of the back line that are going to be there every week that you can kind of develop something with. And it's the back line that's, our forward pack changed. I think there was one player in the forward pack that played the previous week, and the rest were straight in from Ireland. So there's no continuity there. You've no gain line breakers as we've been over and over that with Healy and O'Brien out. So it's very hard to develop. It's very hard to punch holes without the 2 of those guys. It's very hard to develop a continuity without a continuity of selection. So he's kind of done. I'd say in his own eyes, he's done the best with what he had. And he would probably point to that fact that, look, give me some better players and
the issue
that I can have all year round. He's got Kane Douglas all year round. He's got Jimmy Gopperth all year round. He's got Fanning all year round. And those guys are playing for him. Now, the fact is, they're not playing particularly well, and they're not top of, if you replace them with Issa Naziwa, Brad Thorne and another on the wing, then you'd probably have a very different Leinster team. So
I don't think you actually the way Matt O'Connor's backline is lined up. Maybe it's because of the personnel that's available to him, but I don't think it matters a damn who you'd have in that backline the way they're playing, because
They want chasers that'll run after the ball, as you said, for the first 60 metres of the pitch.
He's not interested in playing rugby in the first 60 metres, but even in the area where he does play, the type of rugby he does play, I don't think it matters. Unless you're like Brian O'Driscoll and had this amazing ability to carry the ball like Sean O'Brien and step like
Whoever.
fucking Southhow in his peak, it wouldn't make a difference, because the game that's been played is too, I don't want to say one dimensional. And the funny thing is, Matt O'Connor, one of the default criticisms of Matt O'Connor is without question the least accurate criticism one could make of him, is that he wants to turn Leinster into a Boschy style Leicester. Right? The criticism of Matt O'Connor, what criticism he received when he was at Leicester, was that he moved Leicester away from their traditional, if you like, Bosch Fest into a skilled, deep running game. So anyone who criticises Matt O'Connor for wanting to turn them into Leicester, you can switch them out immediately, because it's obvious they don't know what they're talking about, because they never watched Matt O'Connor's Leicester team play. What he's doing with Leinster is actually, though, trying to turn them into a boxing team. He's trying to turn them into
There's no subtlety within our backs. There doesn't seem to be. We don't create anything. It's all very colour by numbers. You know, it's like follow the pattern, repeat again, and
if it doesn't work, do it
Mm.
again.
and then, you know, because you're trying to get frustrated, that's why you throw a pass that's not possibly on and you get intercepted.
You were mentioning, it's when you mentioned, like, there are certain weather vanes for criticism, and Gompert obviously is one, and, you know, to a certain extent justified. I don't think he should have been selected out. Now, whether he played well at out half on Saturday or Sunday or not, he played well on Sunday, but that's kind of as a fluke, because he had no form going into it to suggest that he would play well. He shouldn't have been selected, but maybe other injuries and others forced that selection.
Well, when you lose
but I
Kearney
can't
on
understand
the
criticism
eve of the game.
of Fanning.
No.
I can't understand it.
He's one of the most consistent players in the team.
Yeah, but not just consistent. I mean, he's consistently good. He gives an awful lot of effort. He scores a lot of tries, which is what you want from a winger. I mean, he's probably the most scoringest winger we've had in a long time. Because our wingers traditionally haven't been strike runners.
The one criticism I don't understand of him is slagging his age. Like, he's 28. Like, it's not like he's 38. It's not like Leicester bringing in Brad Thorne at 39 and denying some other kid coming through the second row an opportunity. Like, he's 28. 28 is not old. You know, it's the peak of a rugby player's prowess probably at 28.
Yeah, those years for a winger probably up until about 31.
There's probably a whiff of, if he wasn't good at 25, why is he good at 28?
Because he's worked like a
I
bastard.
know, that's the suggestion that's been made, you know, and I don't agree with it. One of the criticisms, funny enough, going back to how coaches are held to, one of the big criticisms of Michael Cheika was that he never spent any time whatsoever developing the level below Leinster rugby. He had no interest in the AIL. He appeared to have no interest in players playing at that level.
Joe Schmidt managed to blend it all.
I'm not sure if that's correct, though, really.
And there was huge criticisms.
Well,
of
if you
him.
think that...
He was constantly refusing players permission to play in the AIL. He was constantly bad-mouthing it in
Well,
media.
no, okay, fine, that's the AIL. But I think it ignores the fact that, say, two years prior, or he started to coach Leinster, and in 2007, Ireland didn't bring Jamie Heaslip to the World Cup. Didn't bring Luke Fitzgerald to the World Cup. 2 years later, they were both starting in the Lions.
Yeah.
Same with Rob Kearney.
No, but when I say the level below Leinster, I don't mean the level below Leinster as in the academy. I mean the level below the professional
But maybe
team.
that's not his remit.
Maybe it's not, but there was a criticism that was made of him that there were good guys playing in the AIL, like Shane Monaghan, for example, or various different guys were mentioned. I think Robin Copeland may have even been mentioned at certain points. Guys like that were mentioned in dispatches. And it was a criticism on, wouldn't it be great if he took a guy from the AL and showed what he could do, and then a guy comes up from the AL, two guys in fact, the McGrath and Fanning, they both come up, and whilst McGrath has done okay so far because he's part of the CUS mafia and you guys have the media on total lockdown, Fanning has attracted a lot of criticism, and I just don't understand it. I mean, if all our players put the same amount of effort and same amount of dedication as Dara Fanning, I don't think we'd have too many problems, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I'll give you that. However, if you have, if you have guys like Mick McGrath and also Joe Schmidt, don't forget, brought in Aaron Dundon and Leo Auva, both came through the AIL. So that maybe it's since Cheika has gone that.
But they're both foreign.
They are, but they
They're
still
both
play.
Kiwis.
They are both Kiwis, but they played. Leo Auva had played at least 3 years in
Yeah, he came up from Belvedere.
When he got his break from Joe Schmidt. I think he started in 08. And Joe Schmidt got him fit and turned it into he had a great first season under Joe Schmidt, and he got worked out a bit in the second season, and now
He was there to do a job, and he did that job, and now he's doing it for Zebre, and that's fair enough. But I still think that, I mean, that it's a weather vane criticism, but that gets away from, you know, Saturday. Saturday we played a predictable, one-dimensional game of rugby.
Conservative John Major rugby.
Whether it was conservative, it didn't matter anyway, because it was easy to predict.
Our line out was a shambles.
Our line out was the shambles. Our scrum
was
refereed badly.
Scrum was
Refereed
cheated.
very badly. Yeah.
And I didn't notice it quite so much in the ground, but I only saw highlights on the telly. But every scrum I saw, you could see the hooker's shoulders lifting just as the ball went in, and he was driving, and Ross was coming up.
Marler was going in and under every
It
single time.
reminded me of the match in the final. Final in
exactly what it
Saints,
reminded me of. Except Greg Feek got down on his iPad and said, "Right, lads, X, Y, Z. This is what the guys are doing. This is how you combat it." So Marco Caputo didn't seem to do that at
there were
half-time.
There were questions about Mario Caputo when he was hired, and I was prepared to wait and see. I haven't liked what I've seen from Caputo, I have to say. How a player who has so obviously been turning in, how the scrum doesn't highlight that to the ref.
Well, again,
There are ways,
yeah.
you know, there are ways of doing it, and it's
6 or 7 swift punches, Dave, would sort that out.
well, that's it.
Can't get away with that anymore, Jason.
The old baboon call, as it were. We got into enough trouble with that in the past.
You know, so that is an aspect that we've put, I think, this week in Lansdowne Road. So, you know, he's a kind of a guy who picks a side in the scrum and decides they're dominant and gives them all the penalties. Now, I happen to think that Poit has improved over the last few years. He wasn't a great ref, and he's got a lot better. I'm not saying he's no Nigel Owens, but he's a lot better than he was. I don't think he'd be hoodwinked quite as badly or quite as easily as Garcés
one of the
was.
things he does look out for is driving in, actually. He was one of the first to spot against Northampton. Once it was pointed out to him, he kind of went, okay, yeah.
We don't have an on-field leader because we criticise Cullen for his coaching ability, but he was the one that was constantly in refs' ears and not shouting at them. You know, kind of trying to coerce them.
Cullen was an excellent nag, just a constant nag. I don't think he's that's not just.
Not
he's
his
just
style, yeah.
not that guy. I don't know if that guy exists in Leinster.
He's also not in the tight five.
Yeah, you're looking for
he'd be
someone
at the
who's a real
coalface.
moan. Maybe if Keane Healy came back, he'd be, because apparently he's that kind of guy, but he's also very, very quiet guy. So it might work. It's hard.
Maybe
it's
O'Brien,
hard.
I don't know.
There's a lot of things wrong with the team.
Well, look,
but a lot of those things.
But it's not all lost, right?
Absolutely not. We're in the best position of any of the three provinces.
We got a losing bonus point. We're only 3 points behind Quins, and a guy who, again, we didn't really slag him off too badly today, but we have in the past is Goppert. Goppert actually did a lot of unseen work for that intercept try. He chased him down, and he made your man's kick.
He did,
Swain's
and he
kick
missed it.
difficult, and he missed it in the end. And those 2 points could be crucial that they didn't get the conversion, and therefore we got the losing bonus point.
There was a man there, I was hoping you'd tell me his name, who made
No, he's a Fijian.
Aseli Tikarotuma, I think it is, something like that.
I thought that was an Icelandic volcano.
It was
the name of Sigur Ros's third
Garden Blarden Burden Yard.
But I mean, when it boils down to it, for as bad as we were, and we were bad, and as poorly as we played, and we did play poorly, that intercept try did for us.
Yeah.
Because apart from the actual points,
It always saps.
They're momentum shifters.
Yeah.
They really are. They signal
Saps your
something. They always signal
confidence.
something. If you remember in 2006 when Munster got the intercept try against us in the semi-final, it signified the end. When we did the same in 2009, whatever about the benefit of the score or the benefit of the breaking of the attack. It's just they are momentum shifters.
And we were just on their line.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
having
we were on
made
their line.
the only good break of the game.
And like last year against Saints in the Viva, when that was
Another
an intercept, and but it meant that we didn't get the bonus point that particular day, and meant that we went away in the quarter final.
We managed to scrabble back our bonus point this time. We were very lucky, but we do have 2 home games. Munster and Ulster have 2 away games left.
Yeah.
Plus, as I said earlier, Munster's group, like the weakest team in Munster's group, is probably stronger than every other team in our group. So
Well, the whipping boys in our group is cast. Like they were.
and
Yeah,
they
they
are
seem-
whipping boys.
They've just given
They
up.
seem to they've lost interest, which is unusual for them. Actually,
Although they had a very I only saw the highlights. I didn't see the game. I
saw bits of it.
bits of the first half when I was in over in Twickenham, but their sin binning of they got a penalty try and a sin binning.
Yeah.
Sipi Vado it was a high tackle, fair enough, and it stopped the try in the corner. I would have said a penalty try or a yellow card.
There was an area.
Certainly not both.
There was,
And
an,
that,
there was an element of double jeopardy there. All
that
right.
gave them their bonus point. You know, that gave them their fourth try. Well, their third try was a penalty try. And
I
they
would-
got
I
another
would
point, he
suggest
was off
that-
the field. So the yellow card.
I would suggest that
gave them their
Castro will
fourth
be
try.
when they come to Dublin will be less than interested.
Well, you've got to hope. But the thing is that
Still might struggle to score 4 tries against them.
Quinn seem to have the easier run in than we do. They've got Wasps at home, and
They've 2 away games though.
they
even
do.
though one
they
of
do.
them's in cast.
One's in cast, where you got to think that.
You just never know. Like none of the teams in our group, including us, are playing at any kind of a level.
Well, at the end of the day,
the trouble anyway.
if we win our remaining games, pick up a bonus point somewhere along the way.
Oh, we're laughing, yeah.
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 I mean that's and to a certain extent that's what you have to. I mean, see, I get very annoyed. I get very annoyed about, and you could tell earlier how exercised I was about the thing. There's 2 things that should be done. One, there should be a cool, calm, cold-minded, cold-hearted analysis of how O'Connor is done, right? But it should be done in isolation to Matt O'Connor. There's no point in comparing him to Joe Schmidt.
Oh yeah, well that's
Because and to a certain extent we've become spoiled by Joe Schmidt. We've
totally,
had
totally.
I don't know if there's a football equivalent to Joe Schmidt. I'm trying to think of one. In Gaelic football, certainly Mick O'Dwyer, or maybe Kevin Heffernan, or Cody in hurling. We've had 3 years as Leinster fans, 3 years of the greatest coach that I've ever seen operate in rugby. Right, it's as simple as that. I mean, he's up there with the best of the best from a long history of the game. Right,
And now a season and a half with Ireland, and look what he's done with that. as
exactly,
well.
and that's the thing.
And those same players were kicking ass
Yeah.
against 2 of the top 3 teams in the world.
So there's no point in comparing, and I don't like the way that O'Connor's the comparison to not necessarily Schmidt but the previous coach has been done, because actually people were saying the same and worse about the previous coach in Michael Cheika, and he went on and the thing is we get I said it before, win a couple of games, get through the Six Nations period,
Bit of
get Keane
momentum.
Healy back, get Brian or Ben. Why do I keep calling this guy Brian Teo? Get Keane Healy back,
I
get
know.
Ben Teo fit. Yeah, well, possibly actually. Yeah, get Sean O'Brien back. Maybe Kane Douglas realizes what he's actually getting paid for. We're in a whole different place. But to be there, Matt O'Connor has to realise that the way he currently has the team playing is incorrect. It's not the right tactics for this team.
Is
They might
he
be
the
the right.
kind of a guy who's for turning though? No matter what's happening?
I don't know.
He seems
I
fairly
would have
stubborn.
thought. I would have thought when I first met, and you would have when you would have met Cheika back at Fan Things, Jason, in
Yeah.
2005, 2006. Would you have thought he was a guy for turning? But he changed completely. He matured. Now whether O'Connor has that within him, I don't know.
He was a lot younger than O'Connor, I suppose.
He was a lot, and it was his first really big job, whereas O'Connor's had big jobs. I don't know, but nobody would have thought in 2005, 2006 that Michael Cheika could have changed the way he played, and B, done so by sacking his best mate. So these things, anything's possible. Whether it happens or not is another matter, because one of the things that there are 2 key things that have to be addressed, and one of them, unfortunately, is one of the greatest players in the history of Leinster rugby, and that's Leo. I think he needs help. I think he needs somebody with him to help him.
How do you do that without
Yeah.
taking his authority? Or
No,
taking
that's
his,
it. I do think he needs help, and I think what he needs, and I think we need a new scrum coach. I think Caputo has
gone kaput.
gone kaput, and unless things turn around, and I said it.
Or skills coach, because I think our skills level was appalling at the weekend.
There's a problem with our skills coaches. He's double jobbing.
Shaggy actually highlighted on second captains, I think it was yesterday, where again it's a slightly conservative thing where O'Connor has them passing to inside shoulders rather than out in front of the player. So another thing it's possibly a symptom of being up in the gain line as well.
Yeah,
That
I think
they're so tight that they can't.
I think if with the amount
Get
of
it.
intercepts we've seen would pale into significance if they were passing in front of the guy because they're actually
But if the two players are running side by side as they were for that intercept, how do you pass it in front of a guy?
Yeah.
It'd have to be a forward pass. You know?
I think Matt O'Connor has to get to a Heineken Cup final this year to retain his job. I think it's the only way he assuages the natives.
Well, look, this isn't soccer, and I guarantee you, the IRFU don't listen to the fans.
Oh, they do and they don't. They listen to the bottom line though.
Nor
They
should
listen to
they,
the bottom
but
line,
They
but-
listen to the season ticket numbers probably. You know?
I think. Well, I always said it, and I said it about the media in 2009. They love us when we win, and I think that victory would add numbers, or certainly a successful season. But the question is, how do you perceive a success? At this point, what would you perceive Matt O'Connor's "this is a success, gets me out of trouble" point to be?
Well, you got to qualify for a semi-final of the Pro 12, and you've got and probably a semi-final of the Heineken.
Oh, what is it? A final of the Pro 12 and a semi-final of the
Maybe so, yeah.
of the Heineken.
I would.
Well, look, we've been in all 5 finals of the Pro 12.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Not
like
to
so
be
anything that
Is a drop off.
Is a drop
But
off.
hold on a minute, right? Hold on a minute.
I'd agree with a final in the Pro 12 and a semi-final in Europe, but I'm not sure that that's going to be enough. I think he might need to get to 2 finals and win one of them.
Hold on a minute.
Possibly,
We've got an inferior coach to our last coach. Okay, nobody.
So
would
does everyone
disagree.
else in World Rugby.
Yeah. So we've also got. We've said a million times of all the players that we've lost. You know, the guys have retired and blah 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 blah. So there has to be a kicker for that. There has to be a cycle. These things come in waves. You can't be winning the feckin' Heineken Cup every year forever. I mean, Toulouse didn't do it. Leicester didn't do it. Nobody's done it. Munster didn't do it. You know, there has to be a fallow period.
Okay.
And it's only about how
But can I just
far down
How
you
you
go.
manage
Can I
before
just
you-
can
how
I
you
just
manage the
ask you a
trough.
question though? Right now, the coach has more than just one part of his role, and that's one of his roles is to develop players. To develop
Yep.
players coming through. I'm not talking about that Dave mentioned earlier about Czech ignoring the AL. Maybe he did, but what he did do, what Czech did, what Schmidt has done, is they brought a very strong academy squad through that these guys progressed into
Yeah,
the
no,
national
Connor
ranks.
hasn't done appallingly bad on that.
Well,
score,
I'm just
I don't
trying to
think.
think of who has come through in the last.
The Byrne brothers, Ty
18.
Furlong, Marty Moore.
But they come through to the national level.
Well, Marty Moore has.
Marty Moore.
The Byrne brothers are still in the
No,
academy.
exactly, but so he hasn't really brought them forward.
He's
He
here
just
a
he
year
just
and a
picked
half,
them.
not even.
But Schmidt has been there for 3 years in Leinster.
And I'm only defending him because it's
I'm
a bit
just-
little unrealistic
Well, the
to
question-
expect.
But I'm
him.
trying to ask
if
you-
if you took that question and you applied it to Schmidt, people passed through. Schmidt developed players that had just broken into the Leinster team, though. I mean, you could say who takes credit, say for example, for Sean O'Brien.
Check it, you'd have to think.
Is it Cheka? Is it Schmidt? I actually think it's Schmidt because I think he came into the team and started playing well under Cheka, which it was Joe Schmidt turning him into a
Brought him onto another
superstar.
level,
But on the other hand, he was already there.
But look-
Joe Schmidt. Somebody has to be the guy who gives the guy his first start. And at the moment, O'Connor I think has done well, but mostly, funnily enough, with
Front rowers.
rowers.
But that's out of necessity.
He's
It
also
is,
he's
it
also
is.
got a
But
lot of
it's
these.
always out of necessity.
He's also got a lot of these middle kind of tier guys like Denton. He's got more out of Denton than you would have expected.
But is he
He's
not
got
the
more out
backs
of Fanning
coach? Is he
than
not a
anyone
backs
would have
coach?
expected.
And should he not be bringing through the next generation
Absolutely.
of the Bryans, the Gordons?
Absolutely.
The question
Robs?
is, are those guys there
I don't
at
know.
the moment?
I don't know.
I think yes, I think they are, but I don't think they're
The
ready
place
for
is
the.
stuffed with them. That's the thing.
No, but I don't think that the guys that are the next Gordon Darcy or the next potential Brian O'Driscoll or the next potential. I don't think they're at the level just ready to come into the team. I think that the Tom Daly's and the Ringroses. I think those are the
Cian
guys.
Kelleher.
Cian Kelleher, yeah.
Adam
Adam
Burns.
Byrne. I think those guys are the guys who are going to be the next. But they're a year or two out, I think.
Adam Byrne got a start up in wherever he got it with Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
But
Yeah.
here is something I'm going to tell you, right? Cheka, we've said this loads of times. He put 12 academy guys, Bernard Jackman
Yeah.
and
Mallow Kelly.
Mallow Kelly
And-
and what's his name, the back row Munster guy.
Stephen Keogh.
And sent them to the Dragons every year.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Schmidt blended these guys into various, and he seemed to develop guys into a position. It's like he had a little spreadsheet on each guy, and he had a point in the season planned where he was going to insert them, and it was
you see, this is the whole thing.
You know.
This serves the current debate nothing.
But the point I'm making is that the current guy is somewhere in between. He's not as crazy as Cheika, where he's going to throw a load of kids out to play the Dragons, and he's not as good at blending a team as Joe Schmidt. Joe Schmidt seems to have, and all the players have said it in Ireland camp, all the players from all the provinces who've played under Joe Schmidt have said he knows exactly what to say to you. He gives you your work-ons, as the phrase that's come out of having Joe Schmidt as a coach. He gives you all these things, and it's as if he has a dossier on every player and knows what to say to them when. And that's hard work. That's what he does. What he brings to the thing is incredible hard work. Now, I'm not saying that makes Matt O'Connor a guy who isn't a hard worker.
But I think he's been.
It takes a lot. It's an art as well as
But
a
he has
science.
been
all of
dealt.
that.
He's been dealt a pretty crap hand this season because we've had so many injuries.
Of course,
Like,
and as Joe
and
Schmidt
Schmidt-
was a couple of seasons ago in his last season when we didn't get out of our.
I think
Cup
what
run.
hasn't helped is that he's, we have injuries, and then we have guys maybe coming back and not coming back, and we don't know. And this is one thing that's really fucking irritated me this season, is the whole thing where a team is selected and then changed the morning of the match.
Yeah, that is
Right?
irritating.
That is really irritating. It's disrespectful to supporters.
It's part of his cult of secrecy that he seems
Yeah.
to be developing. We said it last week about how he doesn't release player
They-
contract lengths, how he doesn't like.
Different coaches have different kind of what
He's
my
more
grandmother would call
Cheika.
finagles.
Yeah.
Cheika was the same.
Cheika was like that too, yeah.
Joe Schmidt was all about, Joe Schmidt used to scour the internet looking for things that he could be used to psychologically build up or rouse
Motivate
up players. That was one of his favourite things. Every coach has their little finagles and secrecies, but it really gets on my tits. Actually, all those three things do. I don't like a bit of fib too, and that's what they're doing. I mean, maybe they don't care. Probably don't. Why would they
The
care?
famous week too soon syndrome.
Why would they care about us? I mean, but still, it's very annoying.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that Matt O'Connor is
He
dealing
can be
with a
as annoying
situation.
as he likes if he wins all the fucking
Yeah.
games,
The thing is that we've got a situation where a team will be named for Saturday's match, and until they take the pitch, we don't know if
You're
that's
not
going to be
sure.
the team that's going to play.
Well, I'm sure some of the times they actually were injuries in the warm-up.
Possibly,
or,
but the great
whatever.
example was the Munster match, where we knew on a Wednesday that Rob Kearney wasn't going to start the match, and then it was read out into.
But it seems, it's been going on for years. Do you remember the famous one where Darcy and O'Driscoll were both injured and they flew them out? They were playing for Ireland. And
Yeah.
they flew them out to Poland to get under assumed names. And, I think O'Driscoll said in his book in 2005 that, no, I was never going to play, but why tell the Welsh that?
Yeah.
Like, it's not why tell
Well,
Dave and his mates that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's an element of.
Well, that's what used to actually. One thing talking about Joe Schmidt used to drive him potty was leaks coming out of the squad. That used to drive him absolutely mental.
Yeah, well, so it should. That's what those guys are paid not to do.
I remember we did an interview once for one of the DVDs. I can't remember whether it was the history or the treble DVD, and we interviewed him during training, and we had to leave the tapes, and we could collect them after the match
Make sure nobody's
because
in
we
it.
were interviewing. I think it was Des Lamont, and the players were being trained in the background, and we had to leave the tapes.
Really?
Whatever happened, we didn't even notice whatever happened in the background. But that's some coaches are very secret like that. Some aren't. But to go back to the original point about injuries, Matt O'Connor has been very unfortunate with injuries. He hasn't been. It's not that he's been unfortunate. He's been unfortunate with the players who have been injured.
Yeah.
He's lost. His
A
first.
plethora of wingers. He can't get a fluency in
Yeah.
his back line. He's lost his utility players, Fitzgerald and McFadden, who can fit in everywhere. So he's left with Mike Madigan, who can fit in everywhere, and the poor fecker had to.
Yeah, and that's
So no continuity.
I
And the only
actually
place he's going to get continuity is at 12.
Yeah, and I actually think that it serves Madigan's career better to play 12. We've gone down this alleyway before,
But,
but it's not helping the team at the moment because I think that Madigan might be playing better, might be a more informed 10 at this point in time than Goppert. I've said before that.
Absolutely.
But this brings me on to my point. There's rumours today. Now we've heard the rumours a few weeks ago, but there's rumours today, and I think even Leinster confirmed it today that Gottfried is leaving at the end of the season. Rumours are he's allegedly going to Wasps. We play Wasps in January. Should he be played in that game?
Why not? He's a professional rugby
Yeah,
player. He's
I
been
wouldn't,
paid.
I wouldn't make it. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest. I mean, if we got Racing Metro in one of the final games of the Amlin that year, would you play Johnny?
Would
Of
they
course
not
you would.
play Johnny? Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Of course they'd play him.
you play one of the reasons why you sign a guy is because he's professional. One of the
And
reasons why
also-
the opposition want to sign him is because he's
And
professional.
also, he wants to look good to his new employers. Like, you know, if he
Look-
puts
look at
4
Jamie
tries
Hagan.
on them, whatever. If he puts 4 tries on Wasps, and they're going to be thrilled of looking down the road to seeing him coming.
I
along.
think it happens. It actually happens all the time in sport. If you think about it, players from 6 months out of the end of a player's contract, they're entitled to speak to and be spoken to by opposition teams. So if you think about it, if you're say playing in the Aviva Premiership in the top 14 and you're available and other teams are talking to you, I mean it's highly likely you're still going to be playing that one of those teams.
Yeah, he
before
signed
the
for
end
them
of the
now.
season,
That's
and
it.
even if you've signed for them,
And
you
that
are.
you're going to be talking to them at matches that, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure Jimmy Goppert might have had a few words with somebody while he was over there after the match rather than before it, but, you know.
Leinster players have taken the advantage of away matches in France to go speak to other clubs and clubs that we've come up to later in the season, and it hasn't really made that much of a difference. I don't think it's a big. I think it's just it's more of this weather vane stuff that, you know, if it was any other player other than Jimmy Gopper, that wouldn't even be a story. But because it's Jimmy Gopper, they've decided he's going to be the whipping boy for everything.
There was anyway. They won in the BNI Cup.
Yeah.
However, because they were beaten earlier on this season, they're not going to get a home quarter final.
Barring a mathematical miracle, yeah. They're looking unlikely. They've got every other team that's top of the group is unbeaten. So, you know, we're depending on guys who are top of their pool losing to guys that are bottom of the pool in most cases. So, you know, it's not going to happen. So we're going to be the one group winner that isn't going to be at home. But, you know,
I don't mind that.
it
at this
depends on
level.
where we go. If we go to Bristol, not great. If we
No,
go...
I don't mind at this level. Like the key to it
Rotherham
is.
Titans are looking pretty good too.
Key to it is to develop young players, and one of the ways that develop is getting going away from home in a tough knockout match, bit of
like
adversity.
in that game last season in Wales.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
Pontypridd.
Pontypridd, yeah.
That was the making of that team. You know, a lot of guys, if guys out of that team who hopefully go on to play top international rugby, you know, that
To
game
take
would be
something from that,
will be a major, well, not a major, but it'll certainly be one of the formative points in their career. So I don't mind the fact that they have to go away from home. To be honest, which I think it's actually good for the player.
Yeah.
Like we were kind of mentioning, you know, we were talking a little bit Leo. Like there's a guy, or say coaching the A team is Gervin, and he, you know, like he's serving his apprenticeship on that team. He's making mistakes,
Like
I'm
Axel
sure.
Foley did in Munster.
Yeah, but you know, maybe that's what we should have done. With
If he ever has to go back into a Leinster, you see the clever thing is Gerv. If he ever has to go back into a Leinster dressing room as a head coach, or even as a backs or a skills coach into the senior team,
He's
the
been
guys
out
he's
long
played
enough.
with are gone.
Yeah.
You know, Shane Horgan's gone, Dennis Hickey's gone, Brian O'Driscoll's gone.
Gordon Darcy
Probably will be gone by the time that happens. Felipe's gone. You know, it's much more a much more desirable situation to be in than Leo. And I think we were quite harshly critical of Leo early in the show, and I don't like doing it because
No,
I mean,
guy's
Of
a
all-
legend after all.
all the star players we signed, everything, you know, we signed the Felipes and we signed the Brad Thorns and Rocky Elsom and Issa and all that. It was when Leo and Shane Jennings came home. That's when it started, and it's hard to be harsh on a guy
Who's given that much?
who's given that much, who never. I mean, you look at the last 10 minutes in Bordeaux. You know, if ever you wanted. So it pains me to be critical of him, but I don't think it's working. I don't think you can take the jersey off and put on the tracksuit that easily. I just don't think it works. I think what Rog did or what Birch did is the way to do it.
yeah. So anyway, so just looking very quickly at some of the other results. Obviously, Munster were beaten by Clermont in Thomond. First time a French team beat Munster down there.
Well, we spoke about Leo and the guy he replaced, Jono. You could see his fingerprints all over that win.
I did say this last week, lads, and you laughed at me and said Munster would win anyway, and I think I
Yeah.
ended up agreeing with you, but I did
We
say
were wrong. We
John
got called it
O'Gibbs.
completely wrong. Yeah.
John O'Gibbs factor, he knows them inside out, and he did, and he tuned up that. Well, I'm sure it wasn't only him, but he tuned up that Claremont team. Did you see the hunger they had? How happy they were when they won, and how the guy who
Compare
scored the
that
first
to-
try for
compare that
Italy,
to
he
the-
was jumping around the place. It was
com-
only in the first minute he was.
But compare
thrilled.
that to Toulouse last year when they went there for the
Oh,
quarter
yeah.
final,
Yeah.
who just didn't seem to give a monkeys really.
And even Leinster against Harlequin, like little things like when a ball goes loose on the deck,
Dive on it.
who's the first guy down on it? And it was never a Leinster player.
Yeah.
You know, it was always a Queen's player. And that's the little 5% that makes all the difference.
I
So
think
we're going to need it in spades this week.
I think John looked at Munster team. Look, well, where they've been strong traditionally this season. The back row has been big for them this season.
Yeah.
Conor Murray, of course, drives the whole thing. Paul O'Connell's obviously totemic. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot. But what those 4 or 5 players generally do is bring the rest with them.
Yeah.
So you stop those 4 or 5 players,
And they did.
the rest don't have anywhere to go, and that's what happened. Munster have generally used the back row to drive through close in, maybe 1 out, 2 out, or straight through the middle of rucks. They closed that off. They closed off the back of rucks completely.
But like the top 14 is usually a attritional league, as you know, and they're well capable of mixing it with anybody. Them and Toulon are some hard ass,
By making sure that Conor Murray,
Trying to outmuscle teams like that is never.
It's a thing that Joe
gonna
Schmidt
work.
and John O'Gibbs used to always do when we played Munster. We used to let Munster, if you remember, have as much ball as they wanted,
As long as it was slow.
as long as it was slow ball, and that's what they did. Munster had 65% of the possession.
Yeah. In the
You know,
second half, they just went right.
They had 65% of the possession in the best scrum half in the Northern Hemisphere. Certainly best native scrum half in the Northern Hemisphere in Conor Murray. But they couldn't do anything with it because the ball was so slow.
They had no territory either.
Yeah, they had no
Poor-
territory.
Poor field position.
Yeah. It didn't look like much what Claremont did. But it just took all Munster's hands from them. It took the hands off them.
They hammered the hammer, isn't that what they
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
One match was Toulouse against Toulouse beating Glasgow.
Couldn't see that one.
Well, Glasgow scored a try from your Fijian scrum half / winger, which I'll let you pronounce his name for that.
That's one of the easy ones, actually.
Anyway, but they scored. But he ran
Matawalu.
He ran a straight line and didn't even try and go in under the sticks again, similar to the Quins guy. And they missed the kick, missed out on the losing bonus point.
Yeah.
So, just
And
these small things might come to.
Yeah.
in fact, if we're going to give Jimmy Goppert a bit of praise for that, the guy missed the kick, and how did we were 6 points behind in the
and
game,
Nick
so
Evans has
if that had gone over,
confirmed to be out
he's
for
going to be out.
Saturday.
Yeah. And Marler took a fair dunt on the 22 as well. There is hope. If he was out now, we'd be in a great position.
Well, I actually think that if he was in, and if back in the day, I know I've been saying we shouldn't be doing this, but you can be damn sure that all week, if Joe Schmidt was the Leinster coach in this position, all week, every single press conference, every journalist would be saying, "Well, Joe, how did you feel about Marler's dreadful cheating?" It would be all the press, all the media,
It would happen in Wales. It would happen in New Zealand.
It would be all about Marler. So by the time that, and even if the referee isn't native and isn't from here and doesn't speak the language, that stuff has a way of seeping in. So all you need it to be there. You don't need him to know about it. All you need him is to be subconsciously aware of it.
I think it's more the two that does it.
I know,
the
but
two
in
that
terms,
facilitates
just
it.
in terms
Yeah.
of the thing, that
Dan
hasn't.
Ward, is that the guy?
Yeah,
the hooker.
that hasn't happened, and that's perhaps another problem for Matt O'Connor, that he's not as wily in using the media. The media want to be used. I mean, to be perfectly honest, most journalists are whores for a story. They'll do anything for a story. They want to be used. Look at how Declan Kidney used to use them. He was very clever with them. You spoke to Derek Foley. He told us how Kidney used to manipulate the
He used
media.
to invite them down, and he'd get them, the Dublin media, to drive down to Cork or to Limerick for a training session, and then he'd just wait, and maybe they'd say, maybe the guy from the Star, Foley, or it might have been Jerry, or whoever it was, Kelly, or whoever, would he call back one of them and says, do you want a quick cup of coffee? And then he'd give them a tiny little juicy tidbit, and a nice story planted in the press. Well, it might have been about a prop boring in, or it might have been about illegal use of whatever.
But the press it meant that the press were always always wanted to be the guy who got the little tidbit.
Yeah.
So they always did positive stories, and I don't think that O'Connor. Australians aren't very good at that. Australian media is brusque, and I think Australian coaches, as a result of that, are equally brusque.
Yeah, well, Cheika was the same. You've said about his he used to be very surly with the media, and Matt O'Connor is somewhat the same. He's like you're an inconvenience. The press conference is an inconvenience to them, you know.
I remember Cheika giving a
Schmidt
press
was never like
conference-
that. But
Giving a press conference once, and you know the
he's
way
the
when
exception.
the Interpro, you're supposed to around an Interpro, you're supposed to be all kind of oh, it's a great event, won these games, you know, and you're supposed to talk about these things in mystic, glowing terms. And Michael Cheika was asked a question. It was his first match against Munster down in Cork, and he's asked a question. He said, "I don't care about that. I mean, all I'm interested in is how we play. I couldn't care less about Munster." It's just like, I mean, oh, feck.
You're not supposed
You're not supposed to say that. But he didn't give a rat's ass, and I don't think Australians are very good at managing the media the way that maybe a clever
Yeah, but
New Zealander spent a long
there's
long
a
time here.
psychology to that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
There's a psychology to. You
I know. Well, I think that's possibly one of the flaws in his coaching.
But you wonder maybe it's the perception of an Australian from an Australian rugby person might feel a little bit inferior because rugby union is such a small minority sport there compared to league, compared to Aussie rules, cricket, and therefore they kind of
Wheels
have
within wheels.
they
there,
kind of
Jason.
have to be a little bit more aggressive in the media rather and wanting to.
If we're going to psychologically analyse the coach, I just need to go and get my glasses. But no, I think that's a valid point. I think that's possibly true. I think that the Australian media has always been quite unforgiving of rugby union,
Yeah.
the kicking claps. You know, they've had nasty terms for them in the
Yeah,
past,
yeah.
and I think maybe the Australian rugby coaches that come out of it, they can be quite combative. Ewan McKenzie was quite an arguer.
There's loads of them.
Yeah.
There's loads of them you can think back over the years.
Yeah,
you know, Alan Jones years and years ago.
Yeah, they were all
Eddie
pretty
Jones.
combative guys, you know. So maybe that's part of it, but I don't think he helps himself. I don't think, you know, like I said, my whole thing is I don't mind criticism of Matt O'Connor. I think he's certainly deserves it. I think that the way the team is playing is not right. I don't think the team has been selected correctly, but I do wish that there was a consistency of criticism. That's all I want.
But one guy who was very critical of his former coach was Castro Giovanni.
Oh, Jesus.
Toulon have apologised.
Have they?
Toulon, the club,
Of all people.
have formally apologised to Leicester in writing
That's how you know it's serious.
and suspended the player.
Really?
He won't be available for selection on Saturday
Oh, it was way
against
over,
Leicester.
It was way over the top now, in fairness.
It was way over the top. I mean, Cockrell is one of those guys that really, really divides opinion. Some people think he's a cunt and others think he's a wanker. No, he is one of those guys who genuinely divides opinion. You know, he is the head coach or the director of rugby, call it, well, I don't know, in the English system, but director of rugby of, you know, one of the great English clubs. He's done quite well.
He's
Quite
an
well.
horrible little man.
He really irritates almost anyone who's not a Leicester fan, though.
He does, absolutely.
And I don't know. I don't think he cares. I really don't.
No,
I
I'm
genuinely
sure he's
think
happy
he couldn't
enough.
give a rat's arse. I don't know. I don't know how Leicester feel about it.
I'd say
But anyway,
they
it
got
wasn't
Castro
him.
Giovanni off
Yeah,
the team.
yeah.
It wasn't him that was out of order, let's face it, it was Castro.
Oh yeah,
Giovanni.
you can't go around.
Totally
you
out
can't
of
go
order.
around using language like that. Or,
Bang out of order, mate. He was bang out of order.
It's one thing to think it. It's another thing to say it in private. It's another thing if it's even possibly. It could well be. I don't know the man. He could be a lovely fella off screen, but it could be true, for all we know.
Yeah.
But you don't go around
Well,
saying
even
it
if
in
it is
post-match
true.
press conferences.
Actually,
With all
he
the
called a
expletives.
press conference, Dave.
Oh yes,
It wasn't just he went.
You don't have a special Kuntarama 2015.
It's called the fuck press conference.
It was a bizarre thing to do, though, wasn't it? I mean, I've actually met Castro. He's a lovely, lovely man. He really is. He's a really nice guy. He's a genuinely warm guy who's interested in talks to fans.
Bit too passionate maybe for his own good
Perhaps.
this weekend.
But you know, it's an unusual thing to come out of his mouth. Oh no, I thought it was great.
Yeah. All right, boys. Thanks a million. And thanks a million for watching. Cheers.